Welcome to Athlete Complete, where we host raw and open conversations about the details that impact performance from current and former professional athletes for parents, players, coaches, and fans. Steve Zakuani, welcome to Athlete Complete.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we have a tradition here where we ask every guest what their nicknames are from childhood, sports, school. Well, we've had some really strong nicknames. So please lay it on us. What do people call you? What have they called you?
That's crazy. I can't. So the only thing was Steve-O. That was in college. I was known as Steve-O. Like to this day, all my college teammates, college coaches, college friends, they find it weird that anyone would call me anything other than that because I was literally exclusively called that. So when I bump into them, it's still Steve-O. But I'm trying to think. I know as a kid, I was always just people tell me a lot about my last name, Zakuani, because it's kind of a unique name. So I had that all growing up. And then when I came to Seattle, obviously it was that as well. But during college, my 2 years was all Steve-O. That was all I had.
You know where that comes from, right?
Tell me.
It's from Jackass.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
But there's no like similarities of why you got that nickname in college and the actual Steve-O.
No, my first day in Ohio, they just started calling me that, and it stuck. And that was all they, to this day, they call me that. Everyone in Akron, Ohio, it's Steve-O, but nothing else. Yeah.
So when you were a kid,
that's common to add the O on though, because at Western they call him Drago, and then Chris Henderson we call him Hendo. You have like the O on the end of it seems like a normal thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, even as an academy player coming up back home, like it was just Zakuani.
Yeah, because I started playing like really serious. I was 9, so like from age 9, I was like in a very serious academy playing, and the coaches there would be Zakuani. I mean, some of the guys on the team maybe Steve in conversation, but it was pretty much Zakuani. Like always when it came to football, that was always what they called me. Like my entire time at Arsenal was always Zakuani. Like my family called me Steve, like that. And then some people will say Steve Z, Stevie Z. Like Roger Lafette calls me Stevie Z. From day one, I met him in the locker room. Till this day, it's Stevie Z. Taylor Graham's the same. So it kind of depends. But yeah, Zakuani was primarily in my football career, youth career. That was what I was called. Yeah.
Steve, will you kind of just give a background on your upbringing, where you're from, and how you came to MLS and specifically to Akron?
Yeah, so I'm British to me because I'm raised in London my whole life. But my family's background's in the Congo. I was born there. I left there when I was 4. I haven't been back yet. So I did all my life in London. And, everyone knows England is football that's all you do. Like, that literally is all you do. So from age 5 at school, I started playing Sunday league football from age 5. And that was fun, man. That was really fun. You're playing with your friends. It's the orange slices at halftime. It's all of that. Like I loved all of that. But by age 9 for me, I was signed to Arsenal and I did 5 years in the Arsenal Youth Academy. But I had trials with QPR, with West Ham, with Charlton, a bunch of teams. Arsenal stuck and we became an academy like the year after when academies came to England. I was a part of that, late 90s. Did 5 years at Arsenal. We had about 25 guys on the team. And every year they'd cut the bottom 10 pretty much. So 15 would stay, bring in 10 new players. So it was pressure. It was a lot of pressure. And we played, an international schedule because our team was really good in the UK. So I traveled almost every month to a different country for international showcases. In England, we played very regional. So we played a lot of the London teams. Like it's still crazy to me. Like, here we have the Sounders in Seattle, which is cool. But in London, we have 26 teams. Like in just one city. There's 26. Like, it's 26. They're all there, Chelsea and Fulham on the same street. Arsenal and Tottenham are 10 minutes apart. It's like I grew up in a different culture like that. So I was playing those teams week in, week out. They released me after my under 14, under 15 season. And, it's kind of, thinking back now, they released me with a phone call. It was, my dad got a phone call. I was at home back then when we had landlines in the house and they called on a Friday night. And it was just like, thank you for 5 years, but he's not being renewed. It was probably a 30-second phone call. And then my dad turned to me and just said, you're not going back to Arsenal. And that was it. And to be honest, my passion for football, it went completely. Because from Arsenal, I didn't go anywhere. Tottenham would have taken me, Fulham would have taken me, Crystal Palace, anybody. But I've kind of stopped playing. I started, just not taking it serious. And then, I had a motorcycle accident when I was 15, 16. So that kept me out for a while. And then by the time I was 17, I looked around and Europe was gone because they were signing kids to pro at 16, 17. And I was too far behind. And through that, I started thinking about other options. America became available. And some schools visited us in England. I was playing for like pretty much a travel team with a bunch of other kids who also were good, but hadn't made a cut in academies. I was part of a group where we just kind of kept playing and just winging it as we could. And we would invite, the coach there would invite American colleges and European scouts as well to watch us, So I trialed out for like AZ Alkmaar. I went to Wigan. I went to a bunch of teams. It didn't work. And so I was like, America might be my last chance. Akron made the best pitch. That's all it was. I didn't know nothing about Akron, Ohio. I didn't know anything. We spoke to UConn, Indiana, UNC. Knowing back now, it's like you go to UNC or you go to one of the bigger schools. Akron was not a powerhouse, but they just made the best pitch. And I agreed to go, did my SATs, got the score I needed. And I think I met Akron in like April or May of 2006. And then by the January, I came for that spring season. And I came a semester early in spring and I landed in Ohio. The coach there was Caleb Porter, who obviously has gone into MLS now. And he's done Portland, he's done Columbus, he's at New England now. He recruited me in 06 back in the UK. And then that's how I ended up in Ohio in January 2007 without ever visiting, not knowing what NCAA was, didn't know what soccer was. I just thought it was a way to maybe go pro. And so I came.
Was that a culture shock for you going to Ohio?
London to Akron is too crazy thinking back now. Like, I don't even know how I did it. I don't know. But you know what it was? I was there for football, for soccer. And that part of it was good. The program was growing. We had a young, ambitious coach. And after I came, my freshman class had a couple of kids that were on the US youth national team. That was a good recruiting class. And then the dominoes just fell. Then we started to attract a lot of players. So that 2 years on college, honestly, there were some of the best trainings I had. Now, we didn't feel like a college team. Like, it was very serious, very regimented. Everyone there was trying to go pro. And so from that perspective, I enjoyed it. It was a good break for me. But I did nothing outside of the 5-mile radius of the campus. Like, I didn't go anywhere. I didn't know. I went to Cleveland maybe a couple of times, which is like 40 minutes up the road. But centrally, you can't compare Akron, Ohio, and where I grew up in London. No way. Yeah, big difference, man.
Yeah, I went.
James, did James know all this stuff about how many teams there are in such a small area in England? And then because we were just talking about before we went live, right? You're like, what's the schedule look like? We're looking at East Coast games when we go there. Could you imagine having every baseball team within like a 3 hours drive?
That would be crazy.
Or even, yeah. I'll tell you what's crazy. When I came here and everyone's talking about Portland Sounders rivalry, and like I'm listening and I'm saying like, man, that's our big rival. And the first time I played them, we drove 3 hours because here's why. When Arsenal played Tottenham, which is a big rivalry, it's a 10-minute drive. I'm like, how was 3 hours? I didn't understand it. Now I get it. But back there, Chelsea and Fulham are big rivals. Their stadiums are on the same street. So it's like I came from, exactly. The 3 hour thing didn't sit with me in the beginning, but I get it now. It's just America's so big. But in the UK, it's like literally right there. Manchester has 2 teams right there as well. So that took some getting used to as well for me.
Yeah, it's wild having everything so close together. Yeah. I had a similar experience going from Vancouver, BC to Kentucky, University of Kentucky. My roommate, when I first got to college, was from Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee. I couldn't understand a word he said for like a week. It was like, bro, you got to talk a little like clearer, man. Like he was like drawling, and stuff. I couldn't follow it. It was crazy. It took me a bit to get used to.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Did you stick pretty close to campus, James? Like, did you do what Steve did and just like stay on campus? It's baseball, it's school. Like, did you branch out and take trips, or did you kind of stay at home like Steve did?
Mostly at home until probably my second year. Then I lived off campus with a friend of mine, and we'd go do a little bit more stuff, like go to what do they call it? Keeneland, like the horse racing's big in Kentucky. We'd do a few things like go out and see different places, but for the most part, like I was very focused on baseball and school and everything, so I just stayed very, close to the university. Yep.
Steve, you've given us the Cliffs notes on kind of your soccer career that brought you out to Seattle, but your career post playing has also been still integrated into the community, into the team in Seattle, and so mentorship, authorship. Can you give us a little bit of a heads up on what your life has been kind of since you retired?
Yeah, it's been good. I retired early, and I look back now, like I stopped playing. I was 26 years old, and I had a very serious injury when I played. I came back from that injury technically, like physically, I came back. I don't think I ever mentally recovered, and I think if I look pre-injury, post-injury, I was still a good player, but I wasn't the player that I was before. And I think for me, if I couldn't get back to that, there was no path to that. I was okay. Like so, when I decided to step away from the game, everyone on my team at the time was like, no, just play. You can play 10 more years. Like, you don't have to get back to that. Like, you're still competent. You can still do it. But for me, it was a case of if I can't reach my full level, if I'm not happy, I'm going to just take a chance and do something else. And when I stopped playing, I had no idea I had nothing lined up. I wasn't like thinking I'm going to go into this thing or that thing. I said, I'm going to give myself some time and try a whole bunch of things. So I did write a book at the time, and the book was more just for me. It was more like me talking, because I'm not someone that, when I went through my injury, I was out for like 500 days from injury to getting back on the field. I didn't really talk about it to anybody. I kind of just dealt with it. So that book was called 500 Days, and it was just talking about the mental side of it. Like, going from playing every game, now you're on the outside, you're watching the guys train, you're only going to games to be in the suite and watch people. And it was very difficult. So I did that. I wasn't sure I was going to do any coaching. And the reason I did coaching, I coached at Bellevue High School. And that conversation actually came through Ziggy Schmid, because I texted Ziggy randomly one day, like, I've never thought about coaching, but, what's it like coaching? And maybe I might want to try youth coaching. And he called me right away and he said, start with high school, because high school is a 3-month commitment. And once you do it, you'll know if you could do this for 9 months or 12 months out of the year, which is at the higher levels. Went to Bellevue High School. We were in a pretty bad place at the time. I took my former teammate, James Riley, with me as an assistant coach. And looking back now, we kind of rigged it. You don't get those kind of people coaching high school at that time. And other schools, like maybe it was like the English teacher who also coaches soccer after school. And then we're bringing 2 ex-pros. James is bringing like nutrition and all this mental well-being program. And I'm like taking it so serious. And we did really good. I enjoyed that. I coached for a bit. So that got me into coaching. I've done some club coaching as well. I did ton of like traveling for a couple of years. Once the book went off and did well, just speaking and people asking about my story and different things, overcoming adversity, kind of what that was like. And that was, honestly, looking back now, very therapeutic for me as well. And then I landed into broadcasting. And again, it just happened. That was a phone call I had with the Sounders owner, Adrian Hanoa. He called me one day, what's your plans? What are you going to do? I said, I have no idea. And he goes, look, I'm going to put you in touch with a guy called Ryan Shaber. He runs the Sounders production. Have a conversation. And that's like on a Wednesday. And then by Saturday, I was on air. The red light came on. It's like, okay, start talking. And no training, nothing. And I'm talking about the game. I enjoyed it. And so I've been doing that for like 8-9 years now at this point. I mean, all kind of facets, the podcast, obviously Brad's joined me the last 3 years, I think it is. I've really enjoyed that. So for me, I've had my hand in a whole bunch of things, but I've enjoyed it. I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself into one thing. And I wasn't sure I'd stay involved with the game, but my level of involvement now, I enjoy it. Like, I would never want to be involved at a pro level again, whether that's coaching or being in locker rooms. I don't have an interest in that. But youth coaching is very important to me. I've enjoyed that. And then the broadcasting I really enjoy as well. Just being able to talk about the game, but it's still a healthy distance for me.
Being out for that long sucks. I did it too. I got injured, and I think it was like 2.5 years that I didn't get to be on the mound for. And it was tough, man. Like, because I was like in the locker room rehabbing and stuff, kind of a part of it, but not a part of it. Going to spring training complex and basically living out of a hotel room all by myself, rehabbing. There was days, dude, the only people I talked to was when I ordered food. That was it. Like, I'd go to the restaurant, order my meal, and that was the only words I'd speak, like, outside of the training complex all day. It was like the most lonely, like, depressing time ever, bro. Was it the same for you?
It's yes, but at the time I didn't know it. I kind of was just going one step at a time. I think I always wonder, like, looking, because now I'm like really focused on this and like, checking in with myself and kind of knowing where I'm at. Back then I wasn't doing that. Kind of was just like, I'm injured. Okay, it's one day at a time. Let me do my rehab. Let me talk to my doctors or the trainers once I got to that stage. But looking back now, yeah, because it happened so quickly, and it came honestly at a time where I was really enjoying the game. I was playing really well. I felt like, okay, I'm really dedicated to this. I'm like, I was so excited about the future. I'm like, man, like, I'm going to be a really good player in this league and then maybe beyond. Then the injury happens and you're kind of just learning about it at the time. And, I used to have, my PT was a Russian guy called Boris. He'd come over to my apartment every morning at 9 a.m. And it got to, like, when I hear that knock, I'd be rolling out of bed. I'd be so, like, just not looking forward to it. But he was always upbeat and kept me going. So I would do that for an hour. Then the rest of my day was to myself. I would say the lowest moment is the first time I tried to go grocery shopping, and I was on 2 crutches, and I didn't think it through. And I went to like Target or something like that, or just to get a few supplies. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I can't go on 2 crutches and hold the bag. So they gave me one of those carts, those motorized carts. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how have I gone from a high-flying athlete that always can do everything, and now I'm shopping around in the cart with the old ladies, like I'm like with them. So that was very humbling, and it was very tough, So I had my mom come out for a lot of it. I was like on crazy medication for pain management, and it was like on the hour through the night, and my mom was setting alarms every second, just like making sure I was taking everything I was supposed to take. And, I did that for like a year, man, where I was not a part of the team. I told the Sounders I wouldn't want to go to games, be at training. I'll do my rehab away from the facility. It's too hard to try and watch it and all of that. Mm-hmm. Until I started getting a bit closer, then it got a bit easier when I started to feel like a pro athlete again. But I would say that first year post-injury, looking back now, definitely was the lowest moment, one of them in my life for sure, because there's nothing I can do. I'm just at home, I'm doing rehab, I'm on crutches. Okay, then maybe I'm making a little bit of progress, but it also was up in the air. 1, if I'd come back, and then 2, if I did, what kind of player am I going to be? Those were the doubts in my head. But on the flip side, I'll say I got ridiculous amount of support, man, from the Sounders community, the MLS community, friends and family. So I always felt supported and encouraged, but personally, it was super, super difficult.
Yeah. When you came back, like you played after that, right? Like you came back and played?
But I played 2.5 years after, yeah.
Did you feel like your first game back was like your debut again? I know when I came back, like I had played in the big leagues for like, I don't know, 6 years, something like that, 7 years. And then I came back after that injury, and it felt like I was like brand new again, dude. Like I had the same like butterflies and stuff as it was my first game. It was weird.
So the first game back, my actual first game back, I think was a bit premature, but I know why Ziggy did it. Because it was the game was against the same team and the same player that had the injury against, and there was so much talk in the press, and everyone, and Ziggy came to me.
And it was at home.
Yeah, against Colorado. It was an NBC game. It was national TV, and there was so much being written about the encounter me and that player would have. And what they didn't know is that he and I had spoke. Because when the injury happened, I think it might still be, probably, I could be wrong. At the time, it definitely was considered the worst injury in MLS like ever that we've seen. And then he got like a 10-game suspension, all of that. But the night before his first game back, I called him. We had some mutual friends. I just said, look, there's no hard feelings on my end. We're good, no problem. I remember back then tweeting to the Sounders fans that his first game back in Seattle that I wasn't a part of. I was like, look, show him some grace. Don't boo him. Just like, it's football. Oh, they booed him. They were booing him every touch he got. They didn't listen. So it was like, that's a part of it. But when they came back, Ziggy put me in for the last 5 minutes. And that whole day, I knew I was going to play something. And so the butterflies, the anxiety, all of that was there. But there wasn't the pressure of like having to play well. I just want to get back out there. And I was there for 5 minutes. I really enjoyed it. Then I didn't see the field again for 2 months. And then my first start was in Dallas in September. So hot. And Ziggy put me into the starting lineup. And I played about 55, 60 minutes out of the 90. And that's when I kind of came back. And then I was in the lineup the rest of the season, pretty much. So, but yeah, it was coming back. I was relearning the game. I just was so far out of it. The team had moved on. We changed the way we play, all of that. So I was like readjusting to that and being someone that, I got to the point where I was playing every game, just knowing I'm going to play the whole game. And then now back to like not knowing until Thursday or Friday if I'll be in the lineup on the weekend. So that was different.
I feel like I had to earn my spot again when I came back. Like,
that was it.
That was like, I came through the minor leagues and like I had to rehab in the minor leagues. I pitched a few games. Mm-hmm. And they told me I'd been a starter before I got hurt. And they told me they wanted to put me in the bullpen. And I told them no. I said, I'm not going to pitch out of the bullpen. I'm going to start. I said, you can either keep me in AAA or get rid of me. And they said, all right, we're going to give you a chance, but like you have to produce. So I went out there like kind of like you're a rookie again. Like you got to produce or else you're going to be gone kind of thing. Or you're going to be moved to the bullpen. So there was that kind of like, spooling up anxiety. And I ended up going out and pitching really well. But it was just, it kind of brought up those feelings that I had as a rookie. When I was out in the outfield one time, I pitched a bad game, got called up, and my coach came up to me and he said, you're gonna get one more shot. He said you're either gonna pitch really well and you're gonna stay here for a long time, or you're not gonna pitch well and you're gonna go back down to the minor leagues and you're gonna stay there for a while. So it was like that kind of like edge of the knife thing again. That experience.
That's interesting because there was that pressure the second time around where I felt, my rookie year went well. I played most of the games. Second year was good. Third year, the start of it was good. Then the injury happened. And, it wasn't not in an arrogant way, but I knew I was going to play. Like I knew unless I have like 5-6 bad games in a row and it's just like, oh, he's not in form, I'm probably going to play. I've done enough to earn my spot. When I came back from the injury, it was game by game. It was just like, I've got to do something every game or show that I belong because the team had gotten better. We'd had different players in my position now who also could play and compete for the playing time. So yeah, it was a bit different. It was back into that mentality of having to earn literally every minute that I see on the field rather than just kind of knowing I'm going to play. And I'm just focused on having a good game. This was more like playing. But, I did have a couple of games where I definitely felt like I'm back to myself. We had a playoff game against the Galaxy. I think it was 2012, the one where we lost 3-0 down in LA. So we had to like make this crazy comeback just to advance. And we almost did. We beat them we were 2-0 up. We were going to win, in my opinion. And then, they got a PK towards the end and then they made it 2-1. But that game to this day is one of my best games I ever played for the Sounders. And that was post injury. So I knew it could do it, but not every week. It was now like once every 5 games as opposed to 3 or 4 out of 5. So that was the difference for me.
Gotcha. Steve, when you're post injury, post book, post career, when you're talking to youth kids, right? What are some of the specifics that you're talking about now, right? On this podcast, we like to touch on baseball. Obviously, we've had a number of different professionals, and everyone has kind of their own little sprinkle of what they like to relay. And obviously, you've been through a ton.
Yeah.
So when you go out to Bellevue High School, first training session, what's it all about?
Yeah, so there's 2 sides to it. One is the football side where the standards were very high from what I just came, but it wasn't like I just came from professional environment where they hadn't been, and I just implemented what I knew that to achieve success, this is how you've got to train. Like all the kids that I've coached, especially even when I did club in Bellevue, they loved the training session. It was so intense. But I've gone down now to watch like Sounders practice, and it's like, oh, man, this is like, how was I ever on that side of it? I don't know how I did that because it's so fast and so intense, and I'm like, there's no way. But that's the first thing for me is that how we're going to train our habits, daily habits, the small things we do. If training's at 4, be here at 4, just things like that for me is why I emphasize the professionalism of it. And then, but I also talk about the mental side of it because that's where, my day-to-day now is in the mental well-being spaces with youth athletes primarily, and beyond. But I emphasize that a lot because I wish somebody would have told me back then that it was okay to feel like, a bit anxious sometimes or not feel quite like myself or feel like, I didn't know that those things were okay. I kind of just kept them and just was, like a robot and just going out and performing. But now I'm like, no, you don't have to be like that. Like, if you need, I've had players that I've coached, just like, call me that coach, I can't be at training today, homework, family problems, I'm really stressed. Take a day off. For me, it's the same as like, my ankle sprained or my hamstrings tight. Like, I'll give you the same. I treat it the same. So I emphasize that a lot because that's what I wish if I went back, I would have got a bit more. But yeah, I would say that I think the one is the professionalism. It's like, how you show up every day. If you're going to be here, let's put the work in, let's push ourselves, and I love like the tactics and stuff like that. But it's the human piece. I think most of the players I hope that I've coached and interacted with, they'll remember how I was there for them and the conversations, and I spend honestly more time in my coaching. The guys who are playing, I don't talk to as much. For me, it's the guys who don't play as much and stuff like that, making them still feel a part of it and that the coach actually cares and as people. And so I'm with them. I get texts from my former players all the time now and just updates or, hey, do you want to meet for coffee, whatever. And I'll do it because I like to think I've built those relationships by genuinely caring about them as people beyond anything on the pitch.
That is so refreshing to hear. And that is a big theme for this collection of guests that we have in this podcast overall. And we focus a ton on youth sports. And I think that anyone listening right now or watching on YouTube that just heard you say, okay, if a high school player has a ton of homework to do, they're overloaded and there's family issues, that you're giving them the okay to take a day off is probably out of the question for so many people and so many coaches in that role. And so for you to share that right now is super, super meaningful.
Yeah. I think, man, because if I take it back, and it wasn't that long ago, I came into the league in 2009, and then if I think like where the league was, if I had gone to Ziggy back then and said like, "Hey, I need a mental health day. I need a day off from training," he would have looked at me like I'm crazy, because it's just nothing to do with him. It's just that wasn't a thing, But if I said my hamstring's tight or my ankle, then they'd be okay. So the physical injuries were always accepted, but now like the mental side of it, I think wasn't. The good thing is now, I think players do get that. You can go to Schmetz or the front office or any other MLS coach or any football really, any sports really, and just be like, "Hey, I'm not mentally there. I need a couple of days to myself." Where it's still lacking though is if I take 2 days off for a groin or ankle injury, there's treatment protocols in place. They know how to get me back. If I ask for the 2 mental health days, it's like, okay, take 2 days off and then we'll see you in 2 days. There's still no resources or active things that they're giving me to do during those 2 days. I think that's what's still missing. But I'm appreciative that we've actually got to a place where we can acknowledge that, of course, if I'm not mentally correct, it's going to affect my performance. I remember one time I was in Houston, played Houston, I missed like an open goal, man, from 1 yard. Like, I don't know how. It was so easy that I'd already scored it and celebrated in my brain. And then I put it over the crossbar. And the next week was just brutal. Like, Twitter's killing me and this and that. And then you start to believe the things you're reading and stuff like that. And like, I was 20, 21 years old. Like, no one's trained me how to deal with that kind of thing. And mentally I was suffering, but I didn't talk to anybody. I kind of just played my way out of it and eventually got back. But I try to really focus on that, man, especially for youth athletes. They got so much going on. And it's just like, if we win this game, I would love to win the game. But if we lose the game, and it's not the end of the world, man. Life's going to go on. I just want to make sure these kids are okay and that they're having a good experience with what we're doing here. So that's kind of why I think I've taken that approach.
So I got a question for Drago and Steve, because I know you're on this side. But what is the ideal 2 days off rest for a mental just kind of reset look like for both of you? What would you ideally like to see for an athlete that says, I just need 2 days off for a break, instead of saying, okay, take 2 days off, go on YouTube, go watch TV, whatever. What does like an active recovery on the mental side look like for both of you?
I think in the same way for me, where I'd have a PT or a trainer or a massage therapist with me, I think someone to talk to who's qualified in those fields, because I think that's always important to be able to like express what's going on. That's good. And then having practices, and it's different for everyone. Some people, it's, breath work and things like that help them. Other people would say, you need just 20 minutes a day in nature, take a walk. That helps me. I take walks all the time and I feel way better after. I just feel a million times better when I'm out. I can just take a walk, put my music in, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's learning that specific player, what works for them, what makes them feel a certain way. But I think you give them a couple of practices that they can actually do that is going to help them in that recovery. And then they'll probably feel a bit better in a couple of days' time, feel supported. And I think that goes a long way, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for me, what I do with my athletes, and I love, Steve, that you're putting the mental health and the physical injury in the same bucket, because they really are, and the research now shows that they're completely connected. So you can't differentiate those two things. I appraise what the stresses are. So as much as they're willing to share with me, we talk through it, and we can rank them, or we create language and hopefully diversify what they're feeling, and so they understand this one's actually really weighing heavily on me. So here's some strategies to get out of the situation or support that situation. This one feels like high stress, but when we actually break it down, it's not that big a deal, and you can manage it okay. Just to educate the individual on how to face these things moving forward, because you want to give them the agency to learn the skills to manage the stress. Yeah. But that only comes with support from the coach or the mentor that's allowing that to happen. So if you have coaches and mentors and I've heard this from some of my players, that the coaches, in response to someone asking for a mental health break or I need to do my homework, their response is, you should come here because this should be the stress reliever. Well, if you're not creating an environment where this is the stress reliever for them, you're creating more stress. Yeah. So there's that version of resistance that you come up against sometimes, but ultimately you want to work with these young individuals on how to develop these skills to cope with these things in a very healthy manner that doesn't cause them more harm.
Love that. Yeah, love that.
Yeah, the need for models and resources and activities. You've both mentioned 4 or 5 different really practical things. The thing is that, and we've talked about this before, is if the coach or the culture, the club, the organization doesn't support that, if they're not in alignment with supporting the development of youth players to make them complete, hence the name, to allow them to grow as people as well as athletes, then there's a misalignment. And it's different for everybody, right? Like walking outside in nature might be great for you. Some video games might actually be therapeutic and helpful for another kid, or emotional freedom technique and tapping or whatever. But it does take a person, and it does take a playbook to be able to say, okay, let's take a look at this. What's going to help you today? And I think it's obviously it's different for everybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think even for me, it took me a while to find out what works for me. When I feel this way, what are the things that actually help me? Because, I think one of the things when you start to focus on this and be honest about I've had some depression, or I've had this, or I've had that. It just takes you deeper into that. And it's like, sometimes it can even feel overwhelming just trying to figure out what is actually causing this for me, or whatever. And then what are the things that I can do on a day-to-day basis, weekly basis, whatever, that actually help make this, okay. So I'm still figuring out and adding things every day and changing different practices and stuff like that. So I think us who are in positions where we can influence the youth and affect them, it's important to approach them. It's just like I don't coach every player individually. I don't coach them collectively. It's like this individual might need an arm around them a bit more. This one's a bit more okay if you're pushing them a bit more. I think it's the same on the mental side. Everyone's different. Everyone just needs what works for them. And I think it's okay to have different approaches.
Yeah, I think I reflect on Ziggy, and my first year was making no money, got injured 3 times, was put on season-ending injury. So there was no use for me to be there other than just to rehab my injury. Oh. But I was living with Chad Marshall, and he was on season-ending injury from concussions. And I just remember he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to the grocery store, literally just playing Guitar Hero all day long. Wouldn't even go to the facility. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to the grocery store. You want anything? Assuming he's going grocery shopping. And he came back with a box of cereal and a 12-pack of Coronas. And that was the state that we were in at the time. But we didn't, there were, like you said, this is 2007, there were no tools that we had. There was no one in Columbus on that staff that knew anything about mental performance or, depression at the end of the day. I mean, it probably was a form of depression, just sitting there, not motivated to do anything. Not even motivated to get healthy enough to play the game that you love.
Exactly.
That's when you're in your darkest point. Yeah. And I went up to him and I was like, it was coming into the fall of Irvine, and all I needed was another quarter to get my degree. And I walked in and I was like, I'm on season-ending injury. I'd like to go back to school and finish up. And he just looked at me like he gave you the same look. And he was like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. We're paying you $11,000 a year. You have to stay here. You're a massive commodity for us. And I was like, I left and I was even more angry at that point. I was even more just like, what am I doing here? But to your point, like if you would have had someone there to just kind of pick you up or give you 1 or 2 tools, and hopefully, I think we're all trying to provide that today, and every kid's going to have their own experience, but it's good for us to have had the injuries, the experiences of being told no, because now we know when we go into coaching environments, what not to do.
Exactly.
Right now we know exactly what not to do. That really pissed me off though.
It's interesting too in the youth space, specifically adolescents and teenagers. It's teenagers start to shift off and go towards their social networks for support on the surface, but to really deal with the mental health crisis at the younger and younger ages, the data show that good relationships with adults is what makes the difference. Allowing them to go be social with their friends, but having an adult that can guide them appropriately and doesn't have to be their parent. That's what the research is showing is the biggest difference maker in terms of having a positive mental health outcome over that landscape. So mentorship is so needed now.
So true. So I have a kid who I've been in his life since he was 12 or 13, and he's now 18, going on 19. He's going his freshman year in college, and I've taken him through that. And that's just through knowing his father. And his father was like, look, he loves soccer. Can you just kind of be in his life? You've overcome a lot of adversity, and give him some guidance. And first it started with the soccer stuff. But as I got to know him and got very close to the family and close to him, 90% of what he and I have talked about in the 5-6 years, it's not been soccer. It's been life, where he'll phone me and say, can we just have a chat? And it's like, school's doing this. So my parents are going through this and I'm not understanding it, or I feel unheard. And it's a lot of that while I'm also coaching him in soccer, but we're not really talking about soccer stuff. And I felt like when he was in a good mental space, and a lot of it was just him, I wasn't really giving him solutions. He was just having an outlet, and then he'd feel good after that, and then go and have be fine and have a blast at training or the next game, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I agree. Mentorship's so important. I had good ones as well for me, where there were some adults when I was a youth who I could talk to about some of this stuff and made it okay for me to talk about this, and where I could be like, I'm not all right. I don't feel okay right now. And they were like, there was no stigma or judgment. So I did have that. So I've always in my mind known that it's okay, and that it's also very, very helpful to be able to have that.
You made
James,
go ahead.
I was going to ask James, in baseball, is it there yet? I always feel like soccer is at kind of the forefront for whatever reason. Maybe it's because it's so multicultural and just like this world's view of a game. But yeah, in your opinion, baseball's not even scratching the surface?
It is, James. James is the difference maker.
That's my goal. Yeah, I think there's still like a stigma, around it. The players and stuff like that. You see a guy going down for because you'll see guys here and there go on the IL for anxiety, and I've been in the locker room, heard guys talking about the guy that goes down on anxiety or whatever, and there's like a stigma of like, oh, that guy's soft. We all have anxiety, suck it up and deal with it, dude. That kind of stuff. And it's not there yet. And I love the idea, Steve, of like taking a mental health day. Like, oh, I'm not feeling it today. It's just like having an injury or a tight muscle. Like, oh, I got to take a day today. I think that's so smart, because I think that, like Ben is saying, like that stuff does lead to injury. Like it is, like it's a part of the body. It's all interconnected, and it's something that doesn't get given any weight. And as far as like the coaching side goes, starting young, I think that the mental skills and that sort of stuff is the same thing as physical skills. If you don't coach it, don't teach it, they're not going to know how to do it. So like players these days don't know how to do it, don't know how to take care of themselves mentally, because they weren't coached on that stuff. And I think what you're doing and what we were talking about is like, we need to start coaching how to take care of yourself on the mental side at a younger age, so that like they can build that skill, because it's a tough one to build. It takes time, and you learn yourself and you learn what works for you. And if you have a protocol for yourself to go under, or like you just know you need to talk to somebody or go for a walk in nature, whatever it is, to know what you need to do for yourself so you can then take care of yourself as a older athlete. I think that's huge.
The hard part too, that's kind of become apparent here, is as youth sports become more and more serious, as youth sports become more and more about a business and a bottom line, those coaches are specialized in the sport, right? They're not specialized in personal development, and so there's this big chasm between coaches who are being paid pretty well by a really high level club, whether it's a soccer club or travel baseball or whatever sport it is. Those are becoming more specialized and more professional. And there's this big giant gap where how can you expect, a high level coach at, fill in the blank soccer club locally? Do you expect them, Ben? Maybe I think this is a question for maybe Ben or James. Can you expect those people to also go through some courses or education or audits for them to learn some of these skills to actually be a mentor, not just a coach?
Yeah. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, if you want these kids to be the top of the top, it takes both. And if you're going to require more and more of them and create more stress for them, because that's what you're doing, then they need to know how to handle it and support them. And same for the coaches. They're in the thick of it too. They're going every night. They're sacrificing time with their families potentially. They probably have other jobs, and they're redlining all the time. it's a win-win for everybody to develop these skill sets. I mean, coaches need mental health days just as much as kids do, and just as much as parents do. I mean, it's not just one area that needs this. It's everybody needs this. They need these mental wellness foundations. How do you expect to perform mentally if you don't even have any foundation on how to take care of yourself at the ground level? So these are required skills these days. I mean, if this is the route we want to go, we got to equip them correctly. I mean, and I still do work with the Sounders Academy. You guys know that, and I just don't see it. And if, you see kids' worlds get blown up over nothing. It's like, look, if we want these kids to be pros for the first team, let's start educating younger and younger on the things that they should be developing for long-term growth. I mean, we all have a version of it because we've been through, I don't know, I've been through really tough times. Steve, you've been through tough times. James, Brad, like we've all gone through some stuff, and we're, I think, intelligent enough, and we've learned from it and reflected and continue to learn and grow, which is why we're powerful mentors in that sense. But that's through experience. If we had someone that could help us when we were younger, man, I wouldn't have turned to alcohol.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have turned to things that were damaging me just because I wanted to not feel some stuff.
It's so interesting. I compare it to like just listening to this. It's like, it makes me think about parenting, how it's like, cause I have 2 young kids, Steve, they're 3 and 1.5. And like, I think about, it's so much easier to do all the wrong things like shame and like yell at them, whatever might get you the immediate results. The same in coaching, you yell, you shame somebody, you create a bad culture. Like it might get you the immediate results that you want, but it doesn't get you the long-term results. Just in parenting, like you have to have patience and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard, dude. Like there's times where like, yeah, I get why parents yell and shame their kid into potty training. Cause like, I'm sitting there trying to like read a book and be all nice and stuff, and like, it's okay that you peed on the floor. Like you're still learning, that kind of thing, instead of like shaming him. You don't pee on the floor. You know what I mean? It's like that you get that short-term stuff by doing the wrong thing. But if you want the long-term success, it's like that takes effort out of the coach and out of a parent to like shelve your own stuff and do what you need to do for the kid,
I think we just got a taste of what James has been doing today, by the way. Clean up piss off the floor.
That was a couple days ago. Yeah.
It's still pretty fresh in there.
It's still fresh. Yeah.
Well, it's really relevant for me too. I coach jiu-jitsu, 6th grade boys basketball, and 3rd grade girls basketball. And I compete, Steve, for context, I played college with Ben. I compete at high level in jiu-jitsu, and now it's like, I still want to win. I still want to work hard. I still want to run practice in like a high energy way where people are having fun and getting after it. And I'm tested every 5 seconds with this kid who's like wandering off during practice, and this guy who's like, messing with his cuticles, like in line for the drill. And I'm just like, woosah, find the play, and it's wrecked, right? This is like, these kids are probably not going to play for their high school team or their middle school team. This is just, they're just having fun. And I had a little moment where I texted these guys and I was like, fellas, I'm going through it right now. These kids will not listen. They do not care. They're being mean to each other. And so, yeah, I mean, we all have areas for growth and for an opportunity to help develop these kids and not take it so seriously and relax and mess around at the right time. So yeah, I think we're all at differing stages in all 5 of us in different stages of development for ourselves and for the kids that we coach.
Yeah. I was thinking what you said, Ben, I think was important about it's for the coaches too. So I think, if because if the coach isn't doing it themselves or isn't aware of their own mental situations, they have no chance to reach the kids and stuff. You have no chance. You said no chance. So I think you have to have some background, some knowledge. Just like to become a coach at high level, you're going through your badges and all of that, and they kind of train you into what coaching is on the technical side. You have to have some sort of mental practices for yourself, well-being practices that and you're doing, so that, it comes out more naturally in terms of seeing the kids that are under your care and how to reach them. If you're doing nothing and you're just trying to talk to the kids, it's not going to connect because it's not really genuine or existing in you as well. So I think it's important to highlight that the adults, the mentors, the coaches have to be advocates of it for themselves as well first.
Absolutely.
You had a mentor. You go ahead, sorry, Bet.
I have a protocol for coaches that, through my program where it's what they do in the car before they walk out in the field, just to do a self audit to see where they're at. What do they need to process? What can they process? What can they just table for now? So it ultimately doesn't affect the kids who are the ones that the whole experience is for in the first place, right? So it brings self-awareness and it's not too hard to achieve if you have a little bit of discipline and you start putting into intentional practice. But there's no awareness to do that typically. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I never got to meet him, but there was a mentor while you were playing, right, in your life. And he had passed away a few years ago, right? How did he come about, and what were the practices that he kind of laid into you?
Yeah, so I grew up in like pretty difficult circumstances in London, England. In the inner city, it was very tough. I come from a family where both my parents, but there were 7 siblings, and my parents didn't have much. And for me, it was a case of like by age 9 or 10, I was pretty independent in my football career. Where to get to Arsenal training, I lived in North London, which trained in East London at the time. They were building this crazy facility for the youth, and it took me, two trains and 2 buses to get there, every day. And I wasn't getting home till like midnight or something after practice, and then have school the next day and stuff. So, it was always tough for me. But I had a PE teacher first at my school who was, this guy was really, really, first of all, was a really good soccer player, just for a PE teacher. And so I used to look forward to playing against him, but he took me under his wing and helped me a lot. And so when I went through my down period and Arsenal released me and I kind of, went a bit wayward and, got involved in things he probably shouldn't as a teenager, he was always there, never wavered, never guided me, and never left me. He introduced me to another mentor who was really strong on like the mind and working on things like that. And his influence in my life was it pushed me so hard. One, to be where I was, which was, 17 years old, coming off a motorcycle accident where I couldn't really walk or jog properly, and to start writing down goals of like, I'm going to play professional soccer. And everyone around me was like, what are you talking about? Like that. And then all the moves I was making didn't make sense. Like, okay, you're going to play professional soccer, but you're going to America, you're going to Ohio, you're going to Akron. It doesn't add up. But when I got to college, for example, I probably was the weirdest college student. I had no TV, nothing like that. My room was just a bunch of quotes all over the wall from all the books. And I read 4 books a month for the last 18 years. Like every month I'm reading 4 books, and a lot of them are to do with the mental side of things. And so this mentor was very important in that sense of just like helping me to believe that I could do more, achieve more, but at the same time, what kind of person I was becoming. And I've always been focused on that. And so, one you bring up, so he passed away suddenly, right the week after, the day before I was announcing my retirement. So the day before, so I had that as well. And, it's probably still going to take me. So that was probably a catalyst that sent me into like, okay, I've got to talk to people. So now I do therapy. I talk to people. I'm always looking for opportunities to like look inward and stuff like that. And I think it's from having, this mentor that was very important to me, that showed me the athletic achievements are good, but it's how you're feeling. It's what's happening inside you. You came from a war-torn country in the Congo to the inner city in London. There's probably a ton of trauma and stuff there that you're not aware of. And so let's start working on some of that. And so I spent like 10 years just digging into that. And it's been really fascinating, taking me to some really difficult places. I've lost so many people that's close to me and stuff like that. But I'm grateful that, I do feel like I have the tools on a day-to-day basis to kind of deal with when I'm in depression or where I've had mentors that have pointed me in that direction. So for me, it's never been a stigma. It's never been a taboo. I embrace it. I enjoy it. It's just a part of what I do. I work out. It's the same way where I'll spend 10 minutes in a calming meditation to regulate my central nervous system. For me, it's the same. There's no difference. I get benefits in both.
How important is it for you to cultivate relationships with, and I'm talking about youth into college and beyond, cultivate relationships with people that bring you up rather than pull you down? Like all of us have those friends, right? That like, yeah, we like to go drink or we like to go, stay out late or chase girls or whatever. Like when you're transforming and leveling up and being the best version that you can, oftentimes that comes with letting go of relationships and people that no longer serve you. Like how much do you think about that?
Big time. And what's like my closest friends I've known 25, 30 years. Well, we grew up together. Like we've been friends. We went to school together from age 8 onwards. And like, the 3 or 4 of them that we're friends till now. We're very close, all of us like that. And, the friends I have here, I find for me, most of the friends I have in the conversation I'm having is people who are interested in this. Like they want to grow and that, and I kind of, we find each other. So, and then the ones who, I maybe hung out with a few years ago, who that just isn't for them, they're just not there yet. Naturally, we kind of just drifted apart because I'm not really interested in doing that. Like I'm super, and then sometimes I got to remind myself, like, just, you have to live as well. Like you need to go out and enjoy that glass of wine or whatever. You don't have to 24/7 be just in this, because that's been a big thing for me because I've seen so much benefits, man. The person I am today, how I'm growing, where I'm headed, like I love it. But it's taken a ton of like grief and trauma and different things to get here. But my circle of people around me, like my family and like my friends in my life, this language isn't foreign to them. Like we've all kind of somehow together gravitate towards this and realizing like I said, like I grew up, my father's an amazing man, but because I was in Arsenal at age 9, like I've never known soccer to just be only fun. That results mattered so much. Yeah. Where, for example, if we lost 3-1 to Chelsea on the Sunday and then we have an hour drive back home, it was a horrible drive home because there was never like arm around me or hug me or say, son, it's okay, you lost. No, he was like, in the 20th minute, you should have done this and done that. And so it was very critical. At the time, I thought he's pushing me. Looking back now, if my kid ever was to play sports, things like that, I would not have that approach. I wouldn't. After a big loss, the first thing probably just give them a big hug and let them know it's okay, like we're good. Like, just always reinforce that, where I learned to associate my good performances with like kind of acceptance from the adults in my life. But when I played really bad, then they rejected me. And it's the same with coaches. I don't know if you remember, Brad, when we would win, Ziggy and the coach and all that, they'd be there making jokes. They'd be there. If we lost the game, we walked past them in the airport. We didn't even acknowledge each other because everyone's just so pissed that we lost. And it's like, for me, that's weird. I don't like that. So.
How do you get that human element? I think if I was to ask anyone here, what would be the one thing of a former coach where the one thing you wanted out of them? For me, it would just be a normal conversation. If I could, I didn't have a normal conversation with Ziggy. I mean, he was my coach for 11 years.
Because opposite was Brad and Ziggy are close.
Yeah, no, it was towards the end of my career that he finally texted me, and we both lived in Kirkland, like literally 1 mile apart. We finally started to meet at Starbucks. Yeah. And that's where I was like, okay, I think I might be able to open up to this guy. But it was like, if I would have had that just in 2007 and we would have just had normal conversations, that would be the one thing that I think I missed out on, that attribute in a head coach. Because he was a great head coach, knew how to do everything else, but it was the inability to really have like a personal conversation. Do you get that in baseball, or is the manager like really truly just the manager?
It depends. I think some coaches are better at it than others. I don't know. I've had like personal conversations with coaches very sparingly, and it feels a little lip servicey, it's sort of like they're doing it to check a box almost. And the conversation's maybe 20 seconds going down an elevator or something like that, checking in on like, oh yeah, how's the wife and kids, whatever, kind of just like small talk. There's never really been, in my experience, like a true like understanding of like who I am, like as a person, as an athlete from a coach.
It's interesting because part of my coaching evolution, as I've dove deeper and deeper, my initial conversations with my players it's about how are you doing? How's your life? What's going on? And that's on a day-to-day. Before I even engage with like, how you feeling physically today to see what we're going to do. It's more like, I always check in where things are at. And it's so normal and effortless now to be that way. Because I also know on the back end, if things off the field are goofy, that it could affect what's going on the field. So I want to have that data point. And see if someone needs help or whatever else. But when you rep it out enough, it's just not hard. You just got to be intentional about it. You got to, and you have to care. Like, you got to care deeply about the person first, and know that will help them perform ultimately at the end of the day. But not enough coaches, I think, have ever experienced that themselves. I mean, I think they grew up with hard-nosed everything else, and that's just what they know. And okay, this is how we do stuff. And we got to evolve out of that and recognize that these are different times, and there's a way to make these kids perform even healthier and better, and have a better relationship with it when they're done. And that's the big key, is long-term. When they're done, can they walk away and be okay? That should be the goal, not all the wins and losses.
For me, if I was a youth player and I had a coach like that, it would have made, I don't even know. Like, I'm like, oh man, like how good would I have been? Because I was looking back now, there's so many things that weighed me down. I had a coach at Arsenal, his name was Gordon, like a great soccer coach, but everything else was awful. Like, I hated as a youth, hated in England, the winter, playing in the winter, hated it. The fields were muddy, and this coach was like, you're not allowed to wear long sleeve. It's got to be short sleeve. If you wear an undershirt and you can see it outside of your shirt, you got to take it off. It was like, that's because you can't be soft. You got to be tough. You got to be that. And for me, it's like, look, if I get a long sleeve shirt and some gloves and that, I'm going to play better. I'm just going to play better. But now you're making it like I'm feeling weak for not being able to play in 0-degree weather. It's weird to me, but it was kind of this like that. And I don't think I ever had a coach ever in my life where I felt beyond what I could provide football-wise or soccer-wise, that they cared what was happening in my life. They cared that, maybe that morning I came in and I had a big fight with my girlfriend my rookie year, whatever the case may be, and then I'm a bit off at training today, but it didn't matter because they didn't know, it didn't care, and then I'm not going to be forthcoming with whoever it is. So it would have made a world of difference, man, just having a coach, and you feel that they actually care about you and is asking you like, how are you doing and how are you really doing and what's going on, and that, massive difference. And I think we're shifting towards that. People are becoming more and more aware, which is good, but I definitely didn't exist my youth career, college career, or my pro career at all. It was not even close.
No, you put it in the same bucket as you spoke on earlier. It's like I want to know if you're carrying a knock, essentially, and exactly. It could be something off the field. And I still coach. We work effing hard. I mean, like, that's still all in there, but let's set them up right so we can do that. Because if they're coming in carrying a ton of stress and they can't focus on it, do you think it's going to be successful to the degree that we want to be successful? No, let's clear some stuff out. Whatever we need to do, get that off your chest so you can be here. Let's be here. Let's bring it all in. So this is all about performance. And the added benefit is you get to care about a person as well. Like, there's no loss there. Yeah, in my opinion.
Sean,
yeah.
You know a lot about breath work. Do you know Jeff Lecoven here in Kirkland? He's a naturopath.
No, you've mentioned him before.
I did mention him.
Yeah.
So I didn't know this, but yesterday Steve and I had our podcast, and we've done some parallel experiences that we didn't know about that we did afterwards. Yeah. And I've now done 2 breathwork sessions with this guy. Steve's done 2 as well. Yeah. And it's so simple. It's really so simple. And there's nothing to it other than breathing. And I've had like otherworldly experiences in both of my sessions. Yeah. And
you breathe every day.
Is that something? Is that, I mean, these are like intense 2-hour, right? Yeah. You're in the zone. My hands are cramping. I can't move my body. My brain is on another planet. And I'm seeing things visually. Is that something that the youth can practice in your opinion, in terms of like a stress reliever, or is it just not practical just yet?
Well, I think, getting into like holotropic breath work, which it sounds like you guys were doing like that there, I think that's probably a little much for youth players, but I think that the biggest value is to introduce the concept to younger players that you can either do down regulating breath work to bring yourself down, or you can do up regulating breath work to get yourself up, to create that homeostasis. If you're too high, maybe a 4-7-8 breath to start, a physiological sigh to kind of come level back down. If you're feeling low or tired or, not really out of it, or you're kind of out of it, you need to bring yourself up. You can do a breath of fire or lion's breath to upregulate yourself. And the thing is that it's free. It's transportable. You can do it anytime. You may look a little funny sitting in the corner going, but it works in about 10 seconds. And it's, it's stuff that I do with my children who are 8 and 11. It's like, hey, it's time to slow down, do the 4-7-8 breath, or to prepare for sleep. It's the most impactful tool that literally anybody can do. And here's the other thing too, is like, we all know the benefits of meditation. We all know that we should be meditating. Meditation is hard. It's hard. You may go for 6 months before you hit that meditation moment where you're like, oh, I get it. I wasn't here for a moment. I was in another place. That might take 6 months to get to, but especially for type A go-getter athlete types, or for type A go-getter athlete kids, breath work is the first thing, because you can focus on what you're doing. You can still get into that sort of transcendent state that you're looking for, that mindfulness, that presence, that alignment of the things that you're doing. But starting off with breath work in an intentional way is way easier than meditation, and it gets you there way faster, and it's more accessible for young people. And again, there's 1,000 super simple techniques that you can do. If you miss a goal, right? You miss a sitter, it's right in front of you. You should have put it in. You can, in that moment during the game, do a breath technique that will bring you back down so that you're not totally tweaked out mentally. You have to make a recovering run to get back on defense, and you're absolutely knocked out. Your breath is gone. You can regulate that breath. You throw a bad pitch, somebody hits a home run on you, you struck out again. In that moment, you can choose to do a breath that's going to actually regulate your body back to homeostasis. So maybe not the 2-hour sessions where you're turning into you're all turned inside out from holotropic. I mean, I love that stuff too. I love that. You guys know I love that stuff too. But I think for younger kids, I think that yeah, there's a ton of those techniques.
Yeah.
Should we do some now? Do you guys want to do some breath work together? We could just like totally take a right turn. I had another.
Steve, you go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, I did. I was going to go way off on another tangent. So you go ahead. It's probably going to, yeah.
Go. Take it.
It's interesting to me that you guys, aside from Ben and I, you guys are from all different parts of the world, and so I'm kind of curious about, what makes you, because this again is not just about sports. It's about what happens after you're done with sports. What is it that makes a specific city that city that you call home, right? Like, you guys could all go back to the cities that you grew up in, or a city where you played and you have a lot of networks and people. Like, for Steve, James, and Brad, like, why did Seattle become the place that you decided to live?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I do think ultimately down the line, and not in the not too far future, I probably do end up back in London, because I get to go multiple times a year and I'm there and stuff like that. But I think at some point I will move my life there. Seattle was a no-brainer when I stopped playing, because one, my first day here was just like, wow, this is like amazing. And maybe, I don't know if it was, I spent 2 years in Akron, Ohio, and it just like, I just needed something that was a bit better, and Seattle was. But the way the people have been here, I've made so many friends, got so many ties here. I think for me, it feels as much home as London does. I've lived here longer now. So it's like, this is the place I've lived the longest in my life, and I've been moving around quite a bit. So it feels home. It's home. For me, it's like, I'm very comfortable here. I know the people here, great network. So it was almost like just a no-brainer. Like, it's just like, if I want to stay here and do some work here and get my feet wet going after my professional soccer playing career, this is where I'm going to do it. There's not a big, I don't have to move and pack up and start a new life. And I was ready here. So I think for me, it just made sense at the time. And I've been in Seattle now, 16 years, and very much is home for me. That very much.
It was community.
Mm-hmm.
You bounce around quite a bit. You go from being in high school, and then you go to California, and then you're kind of bouncing around. And this was, like Steve, the place I've lived the longest. outside of growing up in my hometown, but it was a no-brainer for me. Could have gone to Southern California, but then the realization of I didn't know anyone there. I think a big part about being an athlete for us, I think, is always trying to be a part of the community when you're on a team. So whether that's going to a gala for Seattle Children's or Make-A-Wish, whatever it may be, it's all here. And I think you build those relationships and you realize that you have to put yourself in a place that you're going to succeed the most and give yourself the best opportunity. And that was always going to be here for me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just sort of, I played here the longest. My wife was out here with me early when I spent, 5-6 years here. Made a lot of relationships, have friends here. She has friends here. At one point we were living in Wisconsin where she's from. And it was a little bit too cold / quiet for us. Not much going on. We talked about going back to where I'm from, like Vancouver. I feel like Seattle is a bit of a compromise, for us, because it was not either of our hometowns, but it was close to mine, and we both like Seattle, have friends here, and we thought it was a good place to live, so we just kind of picked Seattle, and it feels like home. So I think it's just like where we are together, where our family is for us, and I think now that we're here, I'm not playing ball. I mean, we've been living here 3 months at a time for the last 5 years. But now that we're here full time, we're trying to get into the community, get involved in things. The kids are starting to go to school, and we're just starting to really make Seattle home for us. So it's a little bit of a different space than these two guys, but I feel like I'm just beginning to make it feel like home.
People, community, network. It's the people that make the difference, huh?
Yeah. For me, and I'll second Brad on that. I think when I came here, I did find a community, and Sounders first, and then it just extends beyond that, and you just grow it. And I said, it's home for me. 16 years here, friends in so many pockets. I love it, man. And when even when my siblings visit here, they love it. They'll come and stay for 3 months and just love. It's just it's such a cool place. The summers here are unbelievable. So yeah, for me, it's it's the best place I've lived. And yeah, I enjoy it a lot, man. I really do.
I have maybe a provocative sort of follow-up question to that. For you guys who are, really well known, recognized on the streets, access to and networks to different people. How can you tell the difference between a friend or someone who wants something from you? Someone who is wants to be close to you or be in your sort of gravitational pull. Is that a thing, or can you kind of tell this person's a clinger versus this person is a genuine person who wants to be my friend?
I don't think it happens. That doesn't happen for me. Yeah, I think everyone's pretty genuine, but I guess you're right. You can kind of sniff it out pretty quick. I don't know what the characteristics would be. I don't think I've ever been approached with anything like that. Everyone has been pretty genuine. Steve's a recording artist, author.
Oh, yeah, no.
He's got everyone in his life.
I think when I played, there was a bit more of that, but I also, I enjoyed myself. I liked the nightlife a bit, not crazy, but I like to go out for a drink and stuff like that. And I think, just there were, you meet people, but for me, it wasn't hard. I can quickly put them in different buckets. These are friends for that. These are friends for that. They're here for that. And then I've always had my friends, and that hasn't changed from, like I said, when I was a kid. So I think it hasn't been hard to kind of figure out. I don't think people come with necessarily mad intention, but I can figure out what type of friend or the level of friendship we'll have, how much they'll open up. And okay, what friends that do a couple dinners a year together, what friends that, will go out to a bar, once every 6 months together. Whereas I have friends who do more today life with, and I treasure those way more and invest my time and effort into those way more.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's how much are they asking of you? How much of it is it giving versus am I getting anything out of this? They're just asking me for stuff. Do they want a signed glove to give away in an auction? Am I getting anything out of this relationship? How does it make me feel? Or does it just feel like I'm just giving my time to this person and not getting anything out of it? So you just have to kind of for me, like judge the relationship. Be like, am I gaining anything positive from this relationship or not? And then I know how much time to spend on it, basically.
Yeah. I know for me, and I didn't have remotely any version of the playing career that you guys did, but when someone would introduce you, if they're saying, yeah, he plays for the Sounders or used to play for the Sounders, that was always a good indication of like where they lie. So like a guy I work with now, like that, he would always introduce me to clients, and I can hear him say, yeah, he played for the Sounders. I'm like, dude, that's not who I am. Yeah. Like there's way more value here than that. And it actually took it wasn't a confrontation, but like, hey, stop doing that, man. Like it's that's where when I was done playing, I didn't talk about it because I had whatever shame feelings when I was done playing, and which I think's more normal than people are aware of. But yeah, it's just I don't want to talk about it. And I actually have people who thought I was too cocky or too arrogant because I didn't want to talk about it. They said I was too big time for them when I was really kind of hiding my own feelings here. Like I don't want to talk about that stuff. And my dad's probably actually the biggest culprit there, but.
But that goes back in. We've had conversations about identity. It's not only just it is our identity. It was our identity, but it is everyone else's. Someone that just met you, their interpretation of you is that is your identity. That's how you associate. So, I guess giving some people some grace in those moments. But
you guys,
for sure.
It's so right because it happens. It's like, Sounders. And for me, I had a humbling experience where I knew I wasn't that guy anymore. Like a couple years after being retired, I was walking down after the game at Lumen Field, and there's fans there clubbering, and a fan calls me back, and I'm like, oh man, great. That's good for the ego. Like, he probably remembers the play, calls me back, and then I go up to him thinking I'm going to sign something. And he's like, do you mind going in the locker room and asking Jordan Morris to come and sign my foot? And I was like, oh my God, okay. I get my days are over. So that was cool. Since then, I've accepted who I am now. So it's all good.
Ego check.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great.
Yeah.
The awesome. I mean, that hour and 10 minutes just flew by, obviously a pro, and the energy and your perspective is just super, super refreshing. And it's in alignment with what we're talking about, week in, week out with this podcast. And we've touched on a lot of different things. And anyone who's, again, listening or watching right now, begin to open up a little bit about some of these ideas about the importance of mental well-being, about balance, about rest, about just being a regular person and being accessible, whether you're a parent or a coach or a fan or a player. Just open up your perspective a little bit, because it's going to make your life, it's going to make your sporting career that much more enjoyable, right? It's for a portion of your life. It's not your entire life. It's a process. So this has been such a great, Steve, while we're here, any organizations that you're involved with or anything that you want to plug before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, first of all, thank you. I think these kind of conversations need to be had more and more. I think as time goes on, athletes are becoming more and more honest, which is good. That athletes they're not superhuman. It's normal people, their struggles, their anxiety, their stresses, their pressures. I think it's great. So I love being part of that kind of conversation. And for me, nothing to necessarily to plug, but more just encourage everyone. Just the coaches and the adults and the mentors for themselves to deal with their own shit as well, because we all going through stuff, and we need to really be honest and confront our stuff. I think it will make us such better coaches, such better mentors if we've dealt with our own things or are dealing with them, to then be able to empathize and deal with and manage all the youth that are under our care. And I take that seriously. Like when a kid is I'm their coach, that's very important to me, man. I want to make sure that none of my stuff's getting in the way of how I can help them. So I will just say that, and I think these kind of conversations, the more they're happening, I think it's brilliant, man. So pleasure to be on, and let's just keep having more of these conversations.
Yeah, love it.
That hour and 15 minutes went by. It felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's great. It's funny because I've known him since 2009, obviously, when he was a young rookie pup, and just to see him growing into the man that he is pretty cool. A lot of insight, a lot of good experience there. I think arguably probably the second best high school coach pairing either him and James or Casey Keller and Marcus Anman did Newport High School together.
At Newport.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? Two
That
Premier
would have been
League
a
veterans.
disaster.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Yeah, it was a
Wow.
disaster. There was a lot of booting out of games, and yeah,
Was there?
talk about old school coaches. They know nothing. But
I love having Casey on. It's gonna be fun because we're gonna get some interesting counterpoints to what we've been talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good. Good little challenge.
Yeah. Push
So
back.
I was like 20 feet away from Steve's injury. So James, if you didn't, obviously we didn't preface it with it, but playing in Colorado, and Steve gets the ball, and then this defender Brian Mullen comes out of nowhere and just goes high on his shin and snaps it in half. So tib fib. I mean, I could like feel the break inside of me. People watching on TV could like hear it audibly on TV too. Whole game stops. We don't know what's, really going on. And then, he ends up getting like compartment syndrome. So there was a lot of multiple surgeries and blood thinner, everything. Super traumatic. That's super, super traumatic. And then
it looks like a war wound. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they
and then his return to
side.
play. Yeah, that's right. They did skin graft, everything. And then his return to play was super powerful because everyone in the stands was holding up, his number as he entered the game. And to do it against your former team is pretty powerful. But it's like Ben said, it's cool to see him grow up and, kind of dive into the spiritual side. He's always been the spiritual guy, but on the like more religion side, and then to come to the like really like deep body, soul, spiritual. And like I said, we've gone on some parallel journeys and with the same people, and it's been really cool to watch him grow.
That's awesome. I love it. Really
cool. What do you think? What do you think drives him? Like, what do you think is the thing that like? Because obviously he's super engaging, super high energy. Like, what is he on this earth to do?
I mean, if you read his book or listen to it on Spotify, I think some people go through trauma to give other people reflection on what they've gone through. And, in the beginning, his purpose was soccer. Like that's where his flair was on the field. He was unreal. And to have that stripped away, I think your purpose now becomes that story. I don't think any of us are akin to a traditional job anyways, and Steve certainly isn't. So he's just carving his own path and, dipping his feet in to help kids and help families and parents and try to better the sports kind of space.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk
just
about
like
an archetype. Well, yeah. Well, the sort of archetype of athlete complete and the concepts around balance and the mental and stuff, like he's right there. I mean, he's living it every single day in such an authentic way. It's super inspiring, man. It's really cool.
Yeah. And funny, like Mike came in, Facito, as we were coming in, he's like, "Oh, I just saw Jeff at the grocery store." So there's something in the works there for us. We got to get him on the pod and let James go on a little holeotropic breath work journey.
Yeah.
Then you will pee on the floor, and so you'll be yelling at yourself, why are you peeing on the floor?
We don't pee on the floor.
Seth's trying to get me to do the what is it, that psilocybin thing with that reishi or whatever, and what is it, Renton or something? Have you done it?
Yeah, twice. Yeah.
You like it?
Steve's done it 4 times. Mike's done it a couple. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, I think I might sign up for that and try to get that going, have that experience.
Yeah, I go April 22nd, Earth Day.
Cool. There you go.
When are you doing it?
April 22nd.
Yeah. Might be.
Yeah, it's super powerful.
Yeah, I want to get on that.
Yeah, or at least give it a try. Everyone's experience is different,
Yeah.
So, it's pretty powerful stuff. So,
sweet.
Yeah, well, boys.
This was a killer episode. Excited for Conrad on Monday, and we'll just we'll just keep at it. This was
Do you know
fun
Jimmy pretty well, Brad?
Yeah. We've been Gold Cup together and have stayed connected all throughout. Even when I was on my travels in the Airstream, stopped in San Francisco to eat.
Okay.
And super good dude. And he's been through the ringer as well. Just another guy.
Yeah, he's huge in the content space, and he's big energy as well. And it's gonna be it'll be fun.
Yeah, awesome, dude.
Love it. All right, boys. See you on Monday.
All right.
Peace.